Hi, Rachel. I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing this piece with us. I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was really engaging, and I thought it was really fun and helpful to read. So thank you again for sharing. So I'll go through your author's agenda, and then I'll go through your piece, and I highlighted some areas that I felt were really strong, that I really enjoyed as a reader, and then I put a couple areas in blue where I just had a few questions that I wanted to leave you with. So, your author's agenda, you wanted me to look for word choice and particular verbs. And then you also wanted me to look at those endnotes, which I also found difficult. And think about, was your thought process explained clearly and were they formatted correctly? So I'll kind of address those as I go throughout your piece. Um, so when I started reading your piece, the very first thing that stood out to me was this sentence: "You're an artist putting pen to paper." I thought that was a great metaphor. I thought it was a good connection to different types of art media, kind of keeping it within that realm of art. I really did like that. And it kind of helps kids realize writing is a work of art, writing is art. So I really liked that. And it reminded me a little bit of my piece, how I talked about, I compared it to being a builder or an architect. And I feel like art and architecture and writing are all within the same category. So I enjoyed that we were all able to make that same kind of connection. I thought that was fun. And then as I continued to read, you began the second paragraph with what I felt were the how to steps for a teacher, which I enjoyed reading. I found these steps very helpful. I found that the way they were worded was very engaging and it made sense to me. Um, I also really like how you called your students masters, showing that you are the masters of your own work. Um, and that's something that a teacher can apply in their own classroom. So I thought that these were really great steps and um, they stuck out to me as I continued to read. I also noticed in the second paragraph, honestly, I enjoyed the whole paragraph, but you began to model some of the ways that kids can use craft in their writing. And I felt that that was so important for me as a reader because had I have not read these articles, I wouldn't have known what you were talking about with runaway sentences and how they express out of control feelings or helplessness or how vagueness can leave your readers guessing. So I thought that the modeling and the explanations here were great. I highlighted squish words together because my eyes immediately went to that when I opened up your piece. Um, and then as I continued to read, I understood why you put that there. And I thought that was fun. I liked the how you were talking about how you can manipulate the words and use those. So I just enjoyed that you did that in your piece. I thought that was very helpful and very strong. And then lastly, a piece that I also found very strong was this last sentence that I highlighted. You have now created a masterpiece. So I thought it was a great connection back to the original metaphor of art. How at first they're just using pen and paper, and in the end it's a masterpiece. So I like that you started with that metaphor. It took us through all the steps, and then they have a masterpiece in the end. I thought that was a great metaphor for writing and the writing process. Um, Speaking of the writing process, since I just brought it up, the reason that this writing is blue is because I wondered if this would be a good place to incorporate a little bit more of that last step in the writing process of publishing. You had mentioned that they have a masterpiece, which is their published piece or the end of their draft and they're ready to publish. I wonder if this would be a good place to maybe add another sentence or two about that publishing process. Um, but another thing that I thought you did well, though, about your endnotes was I thought that they were placed strategically well throughout your piece. Um, I felt like when I looked over them and as I read through them, I was able to understand why you put them in that specific location, and how it related back to what you had said. So I thought they were used well. If you wanted to go back and add some more to them, I wonder if maybe adding some self connections would be beneficial. You did include a lot of information from the texts, and I know that the word count was a factor we had to look into. So I wonder if you were to go back and add more, would adding some self connections make it even more clear to the reader, why you put those things in there and how they connected to you as a writer? And then the last question that I wanted to leave you with was, the use of your verbs. Overall, I felt that you did really well, and I thought that you had picked out some really strong verbs that made sense in your writing. Um, but I highlighted these two words of manipulate because I wondered, was that an intentional use of repeated verbs? Because I noticed that you had used that repetitive structure of text down here where you said revise your work, um, or if that was um, just that use of verbs. So I wonder if we could add some new verbs there, or if that was just intentionally put there. Um, so I feel like, um, I wonder if we could go back through the piece and think about, was that intentional, or should I put some new verbs there? And then I thought that your word process was explained clearly, as I read. So overall, Rachel, I really did enjoy your piece and I thought it was a lot of fun. And this is definitely some advice that I'm going to take with me as I continue to teach writing. So thank you so much for sharing this with me.